We live in an era where human knowledge doubles every few hours. Yet, despite carrying supercomputers in our pockets, we are surrounded by massive, glaring blind spots in our collective understanding. You can see the scale of this in basic science education. Today, 52% of Americans believe early humans lived alongside dinosaurs. Universities dedicate entire departments to epistemology, the study of how we know things. However, we have almost no vocabulary to explain why we don't know things. Our default assumption is that ignorance is a native state. We imagine it as a dark, empty map, waiting for education and discovery to push outward and fill the void. But if the unknown is a passive vacuum, it should be shrinking. Instead, our collective unawareness seems to be expanding right alongside the modern explosion of data. This is where we encounter agnotology, the study of ignorance making. This field reveals that the unknown is often an engineered artifact. It has its own architects, rules, and blueprints. The pursuit of science requires a predator's phobia. Focusing intensely on one specific subject means actively choosing to ignore another. When European empires expanded globally, they sent bioprospectors to scour the colonies for profitable flora. They eagerly extracted and shipped back plants like the potato for food, and the bark of the cinchona tree to treat malaria. But they deliberately left other discoveries behind. Local women across the Caribbean used plants like the peacock flower as abortifacients, medicines used to prevent pregnancy. The bioprospectors documented these plants, but refused to export the knowledge. The imperial centers needed explosive population growth to staff their armies and settle new territories. Bringing back knowledge of birth control directly conflicted with that geopolitical goal. Institutional apathy and structural bias created a specific historical void here, demonstrating how knowledge can be effectively erased through neglect. That passive bias escalates to deliberate suppression when militaries get involved. During the Cold War, navies mapped massive magnetic stripes on the ocean floor. This data proved continental drift, but the military locked it down for national security, delaying the scientific consensus on plate tectonics. The ultimate masters of engineered ignorance are corporate. When health threats regarding cigarettes surfaced in the 1950s, the tobacco industry deployed false medical authority to calm the public and protect their profits. When simple denial stopped working, they pivoted. They poured millions of dollars into decoy, basic biochemistry research. None of it had to do with cancer. They weaponized the aesthetic of science to distract regulators. A 1969 internal memo revealed their core philosophy: doubt is our product. By exploiting media balance routines, the habit of showing both sides of a story, they maintained a permanent illusion of scientific controversy. The strategy was brilliant. The tobacco industry never had to produce any peer-reviewed proof that cigarettes were safe. They only needed to manufacture enough doubt to paralyze government action. We assume total omniscience and absolute transparency are always ideal, but we have to ask if knowing everything is actually a good thing. Modern liberal democracies champion the right to privacy. This is a legally sanctioned form of ignorance designed to keep governments in the dark, protecting citizens from absolute state power. In academia, archaeologists deliberately omit exact GPS coordinates of sensitive excavation sites from their published journals to protect them from looters. In these specialized contexts, crafted ignorance functions as a virtuous shield, safeguarding human rights and our collective historical heritage. The unknown is rarely a blank, formless void. It is a landscape with a distinct political geography. We now understand ignorance through three distinct lenses: a selectively ignored territory, an actively weaponized smokescreen, or a protective quarantine. Navigating the modern media environment requires a new defensive posture. When we encounter a stalled scientific consensus or an endlessly heated public debate, we have to look past the arguments themselves. Verifying facts is no longer enough. We must reverse engineer our doubts, look at the shadows, and constantly ask who benefits from our blind spots.